Hey everybody, this is Mitch, and I thought we would take a quick review of the test pattern or test matrix that we can create within xTool Creative Space. So a couple things here. First off, let's look at what xTool has already done for us. So I just have got the machine connected. I've just got a piece of plywood in there, and I'm going to change my material from user-defined to 3mm basswood. And then I'm going to draw a circle. Just a small circle, not a big deal. And then the default is to score. And if you look, we have this one-click set thing. Just click on it, and it shows you a test matrix. So this is their results from testing, and it's like, okay, the default is I want 60% power, 60% speed, and I get that result right there. If I want to change any of the other things, if I want it either lighter or darker, I can just change the settings. You'll notice over here it changes that. It also shows you what the default is. And when I make this change, you'll notice that it changed from reference to user defined. And you can actually save this if you want. So let's do it here. Let's do here. And then this icon here, I can actually save this. And this will be available to me later. So again, this is just the default way that xTool has added to XCS over the versions. This is version 2.3, so it's fairly up to date. But this is how they have personally tested out different materials, and this is the actual results of their testing matrix. So let's go do one of our own. So I'm going to change this back to a user-defined material because the purpose of creating a matrix is we don't know what's going to happen with this material. So we start off again with an object. So in this case we're going to have a circle, and then the first thing you have to do is decide what kind of test you're going to do, and that will dictate what will happen with everything else that we're going to do. So we can do score, engrave, or cut, of course. Let's do an engrave test. So we're going to engrave that. Come over to our Applications tab, and we are going to go to Material Test Array. Now, here's what's going to happen. So it will default to a number of rows and columns based on just the default, which is five rows and 5 columns. It's going to change the power and the speed. Those are the two things that you're testing. And the idea here is you want to get the desired result with the minimum amount of power and the maximum amount of speed to give you what you're after. Almost everything with the lasers, especially when you're doing engraving or scoring, is dependent on power and speed. So the faster you are, the less time it has to burn things away. The more power you have or less power you have, exactly the same. And those two things operate in conjunction with each other. So the default here is to do an engrave test of 5 units by 5 units. We're going to start out with a minimum power of 10 and a maximum power of 100. Our speed is going to be 10 to 250. And then this is just how many rows and columns. So we can increase this. Say let's go to 7 or 8, and that will increase the size of both the test and the numbers that you get over here. So if you look at the matrix it's creating over here, it starts off with a power of 10 and ends with a power of 100, which is exactly what you told it here. And then since it's a fairly even thing, it just tries to divide those out by whatever the matrix size is. And over here on the speed, it goes from 10 to 250 and just allocate stuff. So you can modify these afterwards. What will happen is this will create a group that's kind of already set in place. And again, the idea here is you're just wanting to figure out with this material, what can I do? So one word of caution here is if this is a material you've never worked with, do not, I mean absolutely do not walk away from the machine. Yes, it warns you every time, but let me tell you, I have burned through stuff and not realized I was burning through stuff because I hit 100% power and 10% speed, and that was not a good plan. Okay, and I'm talking thick boards that I was just trying to engrave on, and it went burn through something that was way thicker than it should have. So again, they're totally serious about not walking away from this. So again, I created a small circle, and that's what it duplicated. And then we're going to run this. So basically, click Done, and again, it will create the group. And once you create it, you can move it over to wherever you want it. And you can do several of these if you want. So again, I just chose a circle. You can choose any kind of object that you wish. So like if you want to do stars, let's just put a star out there. Okay, that's kind of big. We don't want that much real estate covered. So what you do is you reduce it down. Again, go back to your test array. And as you can see, it will duplicate that. So anything that you want to test, you can, because again, if we go back to the test, so let me put another object in here. Let's do a rectangle. If we go back to that and change back to our basswood, you'll see that what xTool used was just their logo as a test. So if you have a graphic that you would like to test out what it's going to engrave or cut like, then you can do that, because if you let me change this to engrave and you'll see the difference. So this looks to me like a photograph, to be quite honest, but you can see each one of these selectable. But when you go to 50% power and or 80% power and a speed of 50, then you know that's getting into burn territory right there. Now this is a good thing to note. Maybe we don't go up to 100% power on our initial test, because as I mentioned, you can burn through things really easily and not even know it, because you're going really slow with really high power. So maybe you don't do that. Maybe you can go through this with less. So let's do that. So let's get rid of these two. Oh, and by the way, once you create a matrix, it's kind of locked in place, and it also takes away the initial object you created, so it just duplicates it. So again, we're going to engrave this and go to our test matrix, test array, and let's back the power off to 80%. And again, let's do 8. There we go. And again, if you look at this, let me get rid of that. These are individual items. They're grouped together. So the text will be engraved, and then, well, since this is a grave test, everything's going to be engraved. But in case it wasn't, if it was a cut or score test, these will be individually engraved. Let's go do a cut. How about that? So let's go back and let's cut out some stars. So put the star in there, make it smaller, and then go back to our test array. And again, not going to do full thing. I'm going to shift that over to a red. That's my cutting color. I'm going to cut that. So the words will be engraved, and then everything else will be cut. I think that worked like that. And then, so we're on score. So that, I see, this is a mistake I made. This is what most people do. You have to specify your whenever you create your object, you have to specify its operation beforehand. You can't really change it later, because I think it does bad things, to be quite honest. So let's do that. Okay, back off to 80% power. Leave everything else the same. Maybe make it bigger. Okay, I'm going to move that to the red. Okay, so basically what's going to happen here is it's going to cut these out, and then it's going to score the labels around it. So if you can see that, oops. So cut the stars, you get down toward the bottom there, it's going to score, as you can see, the labels all the way around it, and then we got our engrave test, and we're good to go. So again, push the go button, and generally it really depends on the process that you're trying to work on. But what I would do is again, just do a matrix that's representative. It also depends on the size of your object. So this is a fairly large piece of plywood, so I've got lots of space. But if you don't have lots of space, you can make this smaller. The problem is that I have found, at least with me personally, is if I get something that big, which is, how big is this? It's only 55 millimeters high by about 59 high by 55 wide. It's really hard to see details like this. Okay, when you get bigger, you can see you can see different things. And again, it really depends on what operation you're doing and what object. So the stars are going to produce different outcomes than the circles are. One is a cut operation versus an engrave operation. But why I'm bringing this up is sometimes like if you're doing something like a slate and you're trying to figure out, okay, if I go and modify the power on the slate, how is it going to react? What I've seen personally is the amount of test surface that you see is not actually representative of the actual operation. And what I mean by that is it's the size of a pencil eraser. I can't make up a determination, is this the one I want? So I may have to make it bigger. The problem is I don't have the real estate to make it bigger. I've got a 4x4 coaster. So what you do in that case is you run one that's kind of large like this, find what you're looking for as far as, okay, I think this is the range that I would like to be in, and do a smaller matrix. So let's just go do that. We'll do a smaller matrix. Okay, that I'm going to engrave it. Also going to move it to green because that's my engraved color. And then when I do my matrix, let's say we kind of got this area here. So what we're going to do is we're going to max it out at 80% power and minimum of, let's say, 40%. And then try that. So basically that, and then yeah, let's just try it like that. And what this does is it gives us a smaller amount of real estate, but it helps us narrow in on the test. So unfortunately, with this stuff is you're gonna waste material. There's just no way around it, because you don't know if you've never done it before. And you know, kind of, this really needs to be said, but even the same materials, different batches of the same material can produce different results. Plywood from different manufacturers, plywood from the same manufacturer is going to be different. A lot of times you really don't have to do that. Once you kind of get plywood figured out, it's not a big deal. But things like stone coasters, okay, they're slate. That is a natural product. Where on the planet did that slate come from? Like I have some I get from China. Okay, that is one type of slate. I got some other stuff off of Amazon. It's from Scotland. Okay, that's great. It's a different kind of slate. It engraves totally differently than the stuff from China because it came from a different part of the planet. Okay, so your material makeup itself is going to be dependent on things. So the reason again that you do these tests is anytime you get a new material, you want to see what's going to be required to get you the result you want. And it's just a matter of playing with it. So again, you're going to waste material, but it's an education process. And what a lot of people do, and again, these are all built in. You can buy or find jigs, or people have already done this for you. But again, you really don't have to anymore. But what you could do also at the same time is just once you do a test that you want to keep, you can just go and put a box around it. And then what a lot of people do is they will go and they'll put a hole for a ring, and we'll cut that out too. I need to move that over to red since that's my cut color I like. And then what this will do is this will cut out a box, and I like to make that pretty, so let's make that 5. Anyway, so what it will do is we'll cut this out and then we'll save it. And if you get one of those C or D ring clips, you can actually use that hole to put it through. And then that way you can put on the back, either handwrite it or flip it over and engrave it about what material this was, where it came from, maybe the manufacturer, things like that, or the supplier. So you can just do that and do that for each one that you do. And that way you kind of have a library of stuff. So anyway, so that's how easy it is to do. You can, and again, from the very beginning, all you do is you draw an object, then you activate the material test array, and then from there you tell it the power and the speed you would like. Again, remember to pick the operation before you start, because you can't change it afterwards. And speaking of that, let's just go take a look at this real quick before we wrap up. So again, this is a group. If I ungroup this, I can look at each one of these individually. Now you can see here on the right, so basically with xTool 2.0, 2.1, they started where if you don't have anything selected, it will show you each individual thing and what its setting is. So I really didn't have to ungroup that, but this is 80% power, 70% speed. Okay, and you can see each one of these has been individually configured. If you want to modify it, say you've got a matrix that's very close, and these are even numbers, but you look up here, these are weird numbers, strictly because of how much the spread we had there. If you want to say, okay, well, I go from 10 to 80, but I've got these weird things. I want these to be 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60 instead. You could just ungroup it and then just change the individual layer. So like this one, okay, let's ungroup this. Then I want to change this. Oops, I want to change this one to 70. Okay, and then that way you can fine tune the matrix to make it do what you want. Okay, so again, this is starting point, or you can just draw a whole new one like we did here. So it really really depends, but like I said, if you've got a matrix that's doing good, you can either start over with a refine and let xTool create it for you, or you can just go and modify these directly. And again, since I modified this one to 70, you probably want to change that that text in there to 70 as well. Now that's kind of hard to edit because it's so small, but you might want to change that to 70 as well, because that's what you're doing with that one. And you can do these in a group. Oops, sorry. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to change the power to 70. Okay, and then that will change that power to 70. Yeah, okay. So yep, so 70, 70. So yeah, so you can basically change that, and again, what you do with that is you change that to 70 as well. I can't do it because it's so small. I need to zoom in here. There we go. Okay, so again, the test array is your friend. It helps you figure out the things. And again, sometimes the best thing to do, like if you get a new batch of supply stuff in and it's not doing what it did before, run a test matrix to see if you need to adjust stuff. Because even on, and I brought this up in other videos, even on XTool material, they had a change, for instance, in their walnut plywood, where they went from a several layer plywood to an MDF core. Well, that changed the default settings, and so what you always do with that is the info sheet that comes with the material has their settings on it. It could be different than what's in XCS, so just another thing to keep in mind. But anyway, so this is how you get started with that. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. A lot of people have been asking questions on the Facebook groups about this, so that's how you do it. Good luck.